Good evening, and good evening. How are you guys? How's everything? I hope you all are fine in this quarantine difficult time. And today morning I posted an image actually. It was about a camera with the lens showing zero aperture, and the question was asked by a few people that how it's zero. Maybe the lens is not properly attached with the camera or stuff like that. So I knew what I had to do, and I replied to the people that today evening we will be sorting out this issue, which will kind of very informative for all the users. By the way, this video is specifically for Nikon cameras, so the rest of the people who are not a Nikon user, you probably not going to find this video interesting. But if you like to stick for learning how to control an aperture on Nikon cameras, maybe for in future or any other time, if this video is going to be very helpful for you guys. So let's get back to the business, which is how we are going to have the aperture control of the whole. So just hold a second. Alright, so I'm back. So I am back, and we are talking about the lens, right? So there are basically multiple types of lenses that Nikon f-mount can support. This is 85mm, alright, 1.8 G-type lens. In the D-type, you have the aperture control. You can adjust the aperture from here. In G-type, you cannot. You are losing this option over here. But you can, change the aperture from here. You see? You just change the aperture value, and so that's the thing. You are just changing right from the camera, right? In the D-type lenses, you are basically changing the aperture from here. You set the aperture to 22, not the virus, the 22. 22 going to make contact with this, and then you're going to directly change. But the old AIS lenses, you literally change the aperture from here. Now, what are those AIS lenses? Let me show you. I have one. This is it. This is the lens. Alright, so here this is 1.8. You are changing the aperture to 22. So let's mount this lens onto that camera, and let's see how we are going to change the aperture and still have going to EXIF data into the camera. Because right now these lenses, this is the CPU lenses, so whatever I am dialing over here, whatever I'm dialing over here is automatically going to be embedded into the raw files of the camera. So let's suppose I'm dialing, let's say f8. So f8 is and I take the shot. So you are going to have f8 embedded into the raw file, and your exposure, your camera meter, once I set this thing to f8, so camera knows that it's f8 and it adjusts the meter accordingly to give you the right metering of the scene. But how we are going to do in the old manual focus lenses, which doesn't have the CPU contact. This is the whole idea of today's video. Alright, so let me going to change the lens. Alright, before we are going to change the lens, let me show you one thing, how camera meters over here. Alright, See, this is pure mechanical lens. This is pure mechanical lens. There is no electrical contact. The aperture, let me show you. If you can see, yeah, this is widest aperture. You see, the aperture is 22, 11, oh sorry, 16, sorry again. This is 22, this is 16, 11, 8, 5.6, 4, 2.8, then 2, then 1.8. That's how the lens is basically closing down the aperture from 1.8 to 22. One single click is basically changing one full stop of aperture. But how does camera knows? How camera knows that I am changing the aperture? All right, I am changing the aperture, so it adjusts the meter accordingly. This is the idea of today's video. Before I'm going to mount this lens into the camera, there are two things that you need to know. First thing, you see, there is this lever. You see this lever? This lever is very important. This lever basically tells the camera what aperture the lens is hooked. Now, this is just a reference. So if I'm changing the aperture from here, all right, so whatever the aperture I am clicking over here right now, so you see this point, this thing, this edge, not this edge is basically hooked to this lever. This is called aperture index. This thing calls aperture index ring. It basically moves once you are basically changing the aperture. Okay, so this over here, this moves this lever onto the camera, and once you start moving the aperture ring, this basically pushes this lever like that, and in this way camera knows what aperture you are dialing in, and it accordingly embedded that value into the raw files, and accordingly it adjusted the exposure meter into the camera. Now the question is, this is 1.8 lens, all right, this is 1.8 lens. How about 2.8? What about 1.4? What about 1.2? So if I've set this thing to 1.8, so camera knows 1.8, but how it going to know if I mount some other lens? Or maybe I mount 1.2 lens, then how camera knows it's 1.2? There's a way on that. Let me show you. I just mount this thing into the lens. Voila, fix, right? Now I hope you can see over here. I hope. Over here, the movement is going on like this, so the index ring is moving accordingly. I am changing the value from the lens, and index ring is automatically moving from it. But how we are going to configure it? Let's go into the menu. All right, and into the menu I go to this that spanner. Into the spanner menu I go down to non-CPU lens data. In lens data I can configure up to 10 lenses. 9 in this way. Right now I can configure 9 lenses. So let's suppose I configure 9, whatever the lens I mount, I just quickly go for the lens and select it. So let's suppose I have like 5 lenses, old manual focus. I dial their all values inside, and camera, I just have to go to the profile, select it rather than configuring it every single time. So let's suppose I go over here. This is a new lens. Alright, I have to dial the new values. And what lens it is? It is Nikon 105 mm f1.8, right? So I am going over here into the menu, all right, and on CPU lens data, and then let's suppose a new profile. Okay, this is a new profile. I'm going down to the focal length. I'm start choosing the focal length. What focal length it is? It's 105. What is the maximum aperture of this? It's 1.8, right? Click done. Voila. See, now the camera knows that I am at f22. But if I'm going to change anything over here, if I change the aperture value differently, it starts reflecting over here the same. Now let me show you what I mean. Right now it's 22 because I am at 22 over here. So if I move to, let's say, 5.6, it's at 5.6. And if now I want you guys to see I'm at f4. See, I am at f4. I am at 2.8. See, I am at 2.8. This is f2. I am at f2. This is 1.8. I am at 1.8. I am going to f8. You see f8 over there? I am at f8. So I just synchronized. What I did nothing. I just configured the camera in a way. I told the camera that this is the old manual focus lens, because it doesn't have the chip, so camera doesn't know what aperture and maximum aperture, what focal length of the lens is. So camera meter doesn't know anything. All right, so I have to tell the camera, and this is the way I just told the camera that this is the aperture and this is the focal length. The camera now knows, and it adjusts the meter accordingly, and I'm going to shoot stuff like that. Nothing fancy. But what's next? What if I configure it wrong? Right? What if I configure the lens wrong? And this is what I did today. I configured purposely wrong. Let me show you. I'm not changing the lens. I'm just going to change the profile with the wrong values. So you will see how this will affect. Okay, but before that, let's take a shot. Okay? I'm going to full 1.8. Okay, the camera meter showing I am one stop at expose, so I have to increase this. Okay, what ISO I'm 1.8, shutter speed 50, 1.8. My ISO is saying, forget about the focus because I am at very short distance. I will show you how it goes. Look. Okay, I'm going to take a shot, and my ISO is 1250. Okay, I took the shot. This is the shot. Okay, and what EXIF data? EXIF data is 50 shutter speed, 1.8, and 1250 ISO. Okay, now let me show you if once I change the configuration, how it impacts on the camera meter. All right, I'm going into the menu again. This time I just change, this time I'm going to change the profile and with the wrong value. Look, this time I'm not dialing the maximum aperture. I dial 0. Okay, press done. Look what happened. It says aperture 0. Now if I'm going to take a picture, it changed. Look at the meter. See, same scene. I'm taking the picture. The meter was showing me overexposed because for them it's it's 0, it's maximum value. That's it. Let me show you one more time how it meters. I hope you can see. If not, then anyways. So it basically affects the meter. Same scene. It's showing me overexposed over here. Same scene. Because I changed the profile. I'm going back again. Okay. Pressing it again. Same thing. Now it's fine. Now the meter is showing me everything okay. So this is what happens if you are using an old non-CPU lens on a camera and you are not configuring the camera properly. It's going to affect your exposure. So you have to tell the camera every single time that whatever the lens you are putting on it, you need to configure it from here. Let me repeat what's the menu. Go into the menu, and in the menu you have to go to this spanner. In the spanner you have to find this non-CPU lens data. In the non-CPU lens data you have to this is the profile, how many profile, because every single time you don't have to dial these two things. You just go and select your profile. You see, I have selected different profiles. Maximum 9 lens you can configure. So just configure the lens and just choose it. Like a 600 f4 AIS, so I configure it at profile number 3. So I just whenever I attach that big lens onto this camera, I just going into the camera, select the profile. I'm okay to go. Just one click. It is as simple as that. As simple as this. So I hope you like this quick tutorial about how to configure the old non-CPU lens onto the DSLR and get the aperture value into the raw files into the camera. So camera meter knows what aperture of the lens you have on the camera. In this way the camera meter works perfectly and you shouldn't be seeing any exposure meeting and stuff. Now here is the thing, what if you have a mirrorless? Well, in the mirrorless, this is the funny thing, in mirrorless I never configured this lens. I use the FTZ adapter, alright, onto my Z6. Okay, I use this old non-CPU lens using an FTZ adapter on Z6 and I never configured it. I don't have to because it's the preview and I use the auto ISO feature. So in this way camera I don't have to worry about it that what aperture I'm shooting, because most of the time 99% of the time, actually 99.99% of the time, if I'm having this lens, this prime wide aperture lens, I always prefer to shoot at 1.8, or if I have 1.4, I prefer to have at 1.4. I hardly go 2.8 or 4 or 5.6 or 8. I hardly shoot of this aperture value. So I always keep on this 1.8, and in this way camera get the maximum light, it adjusts the ISO accordingly without needing to dialing in the value. Because for me, EXIF data is useless. It's practically useless. People and different groups are emphasizing you to share your EXIF data. I can cheat my EXIF data over here if I want, and I can prove it that I shot this thing at 1.2. What everybody else going to do? Let's suppose this is 1.8 lens and I shot with 1.2. All right, I configure the camera 1.2. Let me do it right now. All right, I take a shot. Okay, you see, that's 1.4, not 1.2. What happened? So if I take a shot, it's 1.4 lens. It's in the raw file. Let me show you. It's in the raw file, 1.4. Okay, it should be 1.2 is 1.4 with the static. It means that it's 1.2. And I have the lens 1.8. It's written over here. I am cheating the system. How much beneficial the EXIF data is right now? 0. I just cheated the system, right? And if I'm going to tell this EXIF data to any newcomer, and I told that this is the scene, shoot at 50 mm, 1.8, and this is shoot with 1/50th of the second with maximum aperture with 1250 ISO, so you will get the perfect exposure. But for that person, it's going to be underexposed or overexposed or whatever. How much beneficial that EXIF is, and that person is going to blame me. Oh, Sir Babar told me I shoot at 1.8, and he shoot at 1.2. I have the 1.2 lens. I shot it, but my image is underexposed or overexposed. But his exposure is right. See, I cheated the system. That's why my exposure is right, because I know how to do it. So EXIF data is meaning 0 value. Rather than you have to learn the system. You have to learn your camera and the lenses, how it works, rather than relying on the predetermined value, which can get you close to the system. But how long you are going to rely on that value? Scene is constantly changing. You have to understand that if you are in certain kind of environment taking any photo, what kind of aperture values or shutter speed or ISO you have to dial in. You have to do practice rather than relying on these kind of values, because any person who took the shot in different scenario have different light conditions, so that values are depending on that value, on that scenario. You are in different scenario, you are in different light conditions, so that EXIF value is not going to be helpful. You have to practice by yourself. That EXIF value can give you a capacity of like 10 shots or 20 shots, right? And 10 to 20 shots using by copying an EXIF value from some other person, using 10 to 20 shots, you will able to get a shot, right? But every single time you have to rely on that. You have to look for this kind of environment every single time. But if once in a lifetime you spend 500 shots or 800 shots in order to learn how camera exposure meter works, what kind of parameter do I have to change to get a right exposure by clicking 1000 shots, 800 shots, that will be for the lifetime. You know, and you get the perfect exposure without depending on anything in one click, if you know how to get it, rather than relying on the predetermined value which somebody else told you. So I don't know how these forums are going to help you guys, because quite frankly, the techniques and all these things which they are telling you, it's just a shortcut which can make you learn photography, but on a very small scale. Very small scale, and it's going to be temporary. If you want to learn permanent, long-term solution, you have to spend time with this. You have to spend time with this baby. You have to click, 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 click. And then things will be permanent. Things will be permanent. Yeah. So there was a saying that the master, what's the difference between master and the beginner? Like beginner did the practice of one move 1,000 times. No, 1,000 moves one time. What's that? Yeah, the beginner was who did the 1,000 moves practice once each. The master is who did 1,000 practice of one move 1,000 times. So try to spend maximum time with this machine. Try to learn. Do mistakes, please. Mistakes going to make you perfect. Only mistakes can make you learn. You are going to get overexposed images 200 times, so be it. You will explore 200 times how to get overexposed image. If you are shooting like 100 underexposed images, you will be learning 100 new ways to how to take underexposed image. It will help you in taking high key and low key images rather than relying on somebody else's EXIF data. It's totally wrong. Never rely on any EXIF value somebody sharing with you. If you want to take a similar shot, practice by yourself. Somebody took a shot at ISO 100, f2, 1/50th of the second, let's say 200 of a second. I take the similar shot, okay, by 1/50th of a second at ISO 800. So how much good the EXIF data is? Nothing. I stop my aperture value twice and I increase my ISO value twice to get the same exposure. So it means that the EXIF data that I have is different than the EXIF data that other have. But we are both getting the shots. Because why? Because I know how camera works rather than I copy paste the same data. This is people needs to learn. Copying EXIF data is not going to help you. You have to learn all by yourself. If you are stopping down your aperture twice, you have to slowing down your shutter speed twice, or you have to increase your ISO twice, or the combination. Only practice can tell you, not copying EXIF data. Maybe some other guy who likes to shoot at high ISO, it's not good for your camera because you have entry-level camera. That guy shooting with 12 megapixel full frame. Maybe you are having crop sensor 24 megapixel. So if you are going to copy a 12 megapixel full frame EXIF value on your crop sensor 24 megapixel, you won't be getting the same clear picture like the other guy. You need to understand. This is really very important, and nobody on these photography forum is talking about. Unfortunately, for them, EXIF mandatory. That's bullshit. EXIF is not mandatory. Understanding your machine, your lens, how it works, that's the most important thing to learn. Understand your machine. This damn thing. Understand this thing. And once you learn, then EXIF will be invincible. It will hold you zero value. You will be independent, taking a shot at any given condition. This is what I'm trying to teach you guys. Be independent. Don't depend on these EXIF values. This is a wrong practice. If somebody tells you that it's mandatory, respect those opinions, fine, but always keep your learning hard. Learning through the hard way will be permanent. Learning through the shortcuts is temporary. Don't trust me? Try it. You will find it that I was right. And I can bet on that. Thank you very much. And you guys have a very good lovely evening. Stay home, stay safe.